Oh boy, that's great. Oh my god, that's not great.
Half-Life 2 VR is a masterpiece in VR gaming, and I truly mean it when I say I might never play the standard Half-Life 2 ever again. Half-Life 2 VR has shown what a massive opportunity there really is in converting traditional games into the VR space. Now, of course, this has been done before with other games in the past, like Doom, Wolfenstein, and even the original Half-Life. And they are a lot of fun, do not get me wrong, but Half-Life 2 VR has taken things just to a whole new level. Thanks to the amazing physics engine already in Half-Life 2, as well as the hard work from the mod team themselves, this game really does feel about as immersive in VR as any traditional game I think can be. You see, most of the time, traditional games being modded into VR have always felt just a little bit off. It's almost like you don't actually belong in the world and have this feeling of almost like you're disconnected from it. However, this is not the case for Half-Life 2 VR. In fact, the mod team has created it in such a way, this really feels like it's almost just the natural way of playing the game. And that's because when it comes to VR shooters, there are 3 things that you really need to hit to make the game work. And Half-Life 2 VR hits all 3 of these points to a very high degree. One of the greatest parts of VR gaming is the ability to interact with the environment all around you in ways you never could before. Now, in the standard version of Half-Life 2, it already had one of the most interactive environments ever seen in gaming at that point, so moving it into VR already just feels great.
Kobe. Ow.
Actually reaching out and grabbing a can and throwing it in the garbage just feels right. Moving around turrets to fight for you, or boxes to climb on, or even just messing around with all the junk in the environment feels so natural. They even have immersive climbing of ladders, though if you like, you can turn that feature off. Fortunately, because Half-Life 2 already required physics in so many sections of the game, playing it in VR just feels really natural, almost like the game was made from the ground up with VR in mind. Now, I do have to point out, at the moment you still have to click to use doors and levers. However, the mod team is planning to roll out an update to have them function similar to Half-Life Alyx, so you can have a higher level of interaction with them, which could add some interesting gameplay mechanics like cracking open a door to shoot through it instead of going in. The physics in Half-Life 2 are already so much fun to mess around with, so to do it in VR is just such a unique experience. But at the end of the day, this is still a first-person shooter, so let's take a moment and talk about some of the things they did with the guns. Okay, I know I said guns, but this is a Half-Life game, so before we get to any of them, we first need to mention the iconic crowbar. It would have been so easy just to give it a base damage amount per hit and just call it a day. However, they actually created a system that calculates the distance and speed of the swing to determine the damage output. There is a minimum damage output per hit, making some parts pretty fun just to mess around with, but if you actually wind up your shots, it does more damage per blow. Plus, because of how the physics engine works in Half-Life 2, knocking head crabs and man-hacks around with it has never been more fun. The handgun works pretty much as you would expect it to, needing to eject the magazine and put a new one in and rack the slide, always a lot of fun. The SMG and pulse rifle operate in a very similar fashion, with the added fact that you have to hold them with both hands to make sure you actually hit anything, which is something I've always said should be done in VR with two-handed weapons, and something that I've definitely criticized Half-Life Alyx for not doing. Speaking of two-handed weapons, the shotgun really might be one of the most fun weapons in the game. Actually needing to pump it between shots is just so awesome and is insanely fun going through Ravenholm with.
Where are they? There you are. Oh, Jesus Christ, man.
Now the gravity gun, it's pretty much as fun as it ever was. Seeing zombies cut in half with a saw in VR is pretty crazy, and the final push at the end of the game is just so much fun with it. And let's be honest here, I don't think the gravity gun will ever get old. For the rest of the weapons, like the revolver, rockets, grenades, crossbows, really just everything works as they should, and it feels so easy to access on a moment's notice thanks to the weapon wheel. And this was something I really was worried about how it would be having this many weapons to cycle through in VR. But this mod has done it so well. I really hope now to start seeing a bigger variety of weapons in future VR games. One thing you really might be surprised at is how your tactics of which weapon to use in which situation changes so much in VR. For example, I normally ditch the SMG really early on in the game. However, because of its accuracy with the red dot sight and having the grenade launcher to be able to get you out of any sticky situation, it ended up becoming my weapon of choice through much of the game. Another great example would be the shotgun, considering it takes much longer to reload the gun in VR than it does in the standard game. So you have to actually start using it more tactically, which is just so much fun in levels like Nova Prospect or Anti-Citizen 1. Now I will say that sometimes due to the fast-paced action in the standard game, some portions might feel a little overwhelming. Like your back is just really against the wall, even in some of the smaller combat areas, and especially during the larger ones. However, it is worth mentioning that this sort of adrenaline boost is kind of one of the big selling points of VR as a whole, so to be honest, I really did kind of enjoy it. So the question I probably got most of while streaming the game was, how was Water Hazard or Highway 17? Which makes sense considering they were almost nausea-inducing in the standard game, and I'm not gonna lie, if you don't have your VR legs yet, these parts might be just a little difficult. However, I am so surprised at how well they got this working. There are so many parts of Half-Life 2 that many people would think would feel terrible in VR, but to be honest, not only were the controls just really well done, but the way everything moves, I never really felt that sick at all. I mean, I was doing tricks in the hovercraft and Water Hazard and having some pretty intense firefights in Follow Freeman. And through it all, everything felt just so smooth and natural. As skeptical as I was for many parts of the game, I am just so surprised at how well it all felt. So long as you're okay with smooth movement, I really think most people can play through it with little discomfort or nausea at all, which is still a big hurdle for many people in the VR space. Though, to be honest, I've spent most of my youth on boats fishing, so seasickness and in turn VR sickness has never really been a huge issue for me personally. Well, except when I play Doom VFR. So I might not be the best judge overall when it comes to what is nausea-inducing in VR, but from what I could tell, they did an amazing job making sure this game was not nausea-inducing, which is just such a pleasant surprise. The mod has put all these features in just so well. I have a hard time even explaining to you how much fun I had while playing through it. I said at the beginning, I might never play base Half-Life 2 again, and I really do mean it. Doing something like going through Ravenholm is just such a surreal feeling. The zombies popping up all around you is far more panic-inducing in VR for obvious reasons, and even simple firefights with the Combine keep your adrenaline going thanks to that faster pace of combat that VR typically has. And I also want to point out that fighting something like a Strider in VR just feels like such an imposing challenge. I mean, seeing these guys in virtual reality, you really begin to understand why Earth was so easily conquered. There are so many moments that felt just sort of routine in a standard first-person shooter that now feel just so much more engaging and, more importantly, fun. VR gaming as a whole is still very much in an experimental phase of people trying out different things to see what works and what needs to be tossed out. Till now, remaking traditional games in VR has had, well, mixed results. But thanks to the hard work from this mod team, I think we are finally starting to realize what makes VR conversion mods work, which will help open up a whole new era in VR gaming, where people will be able to hopefully re-experience some of their favorite classic games as if they were truly there. Listen, if you have a VR headset, this is a must-play game, and it's free on Steam, so there's really no reason not to at least go and give it a shot. Hopefully soon we'll have Half-Life Episode 1 and 2 in VR as well, but till then, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be busy enough just playing and replaying through one of my favorite games through one of my favorite methods of gaming. I really want to thank you guys so much for watching. This game has just been so much fun to play through, and getting a chance to make a video on it has just been a blast. So if you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed making it, please think about subscribing to the channel, or check out some of the other videos we got on there. Either way, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again real soon.